perhaps not as enthused as they might be. I mean, they're always conscientious, they do a good job, but the day before everything went to press, they FedExed me a proof of the cover, which was bright orange. I mean, bright orange, brighter than that lady's shirt there. And it had green type on it and sort of green ghastly shadows in the corners. And I wrote back and I said, I realized that this is one of those we're going to press in 24 hours, so we hope you like it jobs. I said, but I don't like it for the record. And, you know, if there is any way of perhaps at least changing the background color so it doesn't look quite so much like a rotting pumpkin, that would be nice. Anyway, to their credit, they did in fact listen. I had suggested switching the background color to a nice charcoal gray, which I thought would look nice with the emerald green type and so forth. Anyway, they came back and they said, well, we don't think we can do that because it's too uncertain a process and we'd have to do multiple runs and we don't have time. I said, but our photographer was, you know, playing with filters, taking the pictures of it, and one of his colored filters made it come out a nice cognac color. And what do you think of this? So they sent me a quick digital portrait of it. I said that was a lot better. Yes, let's go with that. So that's why you have a nice cognac colored book and not a pumpkin colored. I mean, it would have been seasonal and everything, but as I said, you know, I just don't like orange. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful, Dee. And tell us, is there going to be next Voyager 25 and then sequential?
Will there be a Voyager 25? Well, I certainly hope so. And let's put it that I think if there's not, we can figure out a way to make that happen.
We can. But you've all done your part by buying Outlet Dragonfly 25 to encourage them, in fact, to do the whole series. And I'm sure many of you would like to have that because it's such a beautiful, you know, the colors, the covers are gorgeous, and you've got the bookmark, and it's just a handsome set. And we also know, you might not know this, Diana, that some of them read their Outlander to the point where it falls apart and wears out.
So there's that. No, I'm always very flattered when people bring me, you know, their beloved old first paperback, which is, you know, held together with tape and rubber bands and so forth. They're always apologizing. And I say, no, this is great. On the other hand, if you'd like to buy a nice 20th anniversary as backup, you know, that would be fine too. After all, you might want to lend it to someone. So anyway, thanks very much. We appreciate your support all around, as does the television show. I should say, for those of you who've been on Facebook during the last few days and probably noticed what was going on there, the show is made by Sony Productions. That is, they pay for it. Starz is the producer and distributor in the U.S., so they're in charge of all of the marketing, all of the advertising that you see. But Sony actually pays for it, and therefore they also own all of the merchandising rights, which does not include things like the T-shirts which have the text of the books on them, because the text is mine. I can do anything I want with it. Likewise, the Outlander coloring book, that's also mine because the text in it is all mine. Yeah, but they do own things like clothes and jewelry and stuff like that. Well, we do have a huge, wonderful, and very creative fan community who for years have been inspired by the books to make their own crafts, their own jewelry, their own art. And, you know, we pretty much encourage this because not only is it a lot of fun to see what they come up with, but, you know, it's totally free publicity for the show. And up to this point, they have pretty much realized that as well. But they have a number of shows, and which are not all as equally supported by fans. And they had noticed a certain amount of piracy going on amongst the lineup of their shows. And so they decided, well, we've got to try to shut this down. So they engaged a third-party company called Counterfind, which is supposed to search out counterfeit, you know, and illegal goods being sold. Anyway, they turned it over to this person and said, here's a list of shows, you know, find out anybody who's selling illegal stuff and, you know, send a notice to Facebook, you know, saying these people are counterfeiters or illegal or so forth, and we want their page shut down. So this dragnet scooped up an enormous number of perfectly innocent Outlander fans who were not selling counterfeit goods, but, you know, just making things for their own enjoyment or their friends. And so suddenly people last week were getting these notices from Facebook saying, well, a claim has been made against you by a third party, you know, counterfind.com, and so you're denied access to your page, you know, your page is gone, and said you have to resolve it with this third party. In other words, Facebook is not going to do a thing, you know. And thing is, Counterfind is a computerized bot, that you can't talk to it. You can't say, look, I'm the counterfeiter in Japan. And so there was no way for these people to get their pages back. Okay, well, after seeing this go on for 24 hours, as I was right, and I and Meryl separately had talked to the people that we know at Sony, and I don't know people in their legal department, but I did know a couple of vice presidents who I thought would listen. So I talked to them and I said, look, we've always depended on our fans for the support of the shows and the way to treat them. And they agreed with me. And so I'm pleased to say we really got their pages back. Props to them for listening and doing something immediately about it. They said that they would be issuing sort of guidelines, about stuff that they would prefer fans not do, but anything else you want to do is totally cool. That hasn't come along yet. They said they would give it to me and undoubtedly to Meryl as well to put up and post for people. So, for the time being, everybody's cool. I think it's fine. Yeah. My pleasure.
Can I interrupt you for a minute? I love this because this was actually the plot of the most recent John Sanford thriller, which involved, in fact, a little group in a little town in Minnesota deciding that they would turn Barbie and Ken into sex toys. And Mattel sent a PI to shut them down. Now, you wouldn't think that this was necessarily the stuff of a gripping thriller, can I tell you? It made an absolutely great plot, to hear what Diana is talking about. You said not fans, but people actually just trying to make money.
Totally cool. I had no idea. Yeah, frankly, that sounds like a great idea. Basically, Mattel was missing that when we had all markets. But, everybody's got their vision. Which kind of leads me to the TV show, since we're talking about that to start with. As you no doubt know, the TV show is sort of directed by Ron Moore, who is what they call a showrunner. Extremely cool guy. He's the most laid-back person I've ever met. The first time I did a fan event with him, we walked out into a room like this, and equally enthusiastic people. And when the jury all died down, he just smiled and said, "So, what do you want to talk about?" It's about as good an opening as I've ever heard. But the thing about Ron is that he doesn't panic about things. So, if you have a problem, you feel perfectly good in talking to him about it. He's very straightforward, very logical. And, sometimes I'll say, this is a problem here. And I'll say, well, I know, but there's just no way I can film that. Or, the logistics just don't work, and this is why. As for instance, with the grotto scene at the end of season 1, he said, yeah, I know this is a great scene and so forth, and I love to do it. He said, but hey, it's way too expensive to build a grotto, for a 30-second scene. And also, you get tremendous insurance issues when you put actors in water. Okay, and he said, I have another idea which I'm working on. Anyway, this idea was not that great, but anyway. He is the showrunner, which means that he gets to decide. Anyway, the thing is that we do talk back and forth. Likewise, I am a consultant on the show, which does not mean that I have any control over it. Thank you. It does mean that they show it to me and encourage me to say things about it. And sometimes they take account of what I say, and sometimes they don't. But 9 times out of 10, if I raise an issue, they will at least address it one way or another. And the 10th time, they'll tell me why they can't. Which sometimes happens. There is limited space, time, and logistical concerns. If what you want to do involves renting a helicopter, for instance, they might do it. And then again, if it involves renting an 18th century sailing ship, they really do it because we're on those 18th century sailing ships. But if you needed, like a tanker or something, then no, we're not doing that. Something like that. So the scripts are basically written in a sort of collaborative fashion. I know this because I wrote one script for them for season 2, which was fun. It was a lot of fun because I got not only to write it, but also to go to Scotland and watch it being filmed and be on the ground for input, which is why I wanted to be there, because I'd seen enough of the scripts and the filming to know how much changes once they're on the ground. See, a script, you start out with an outline, And that's generated by the writers en masse who are sitting together in the writer's room with the showrunner or showrunners. We now have Matt Robertson and Tony Graffia, who have been elevated to the rank of showrunners as well. You hear rumors, that Ron has abandoned the show, he's got tired of it, which is not true. He said, I'm stepping back a little because he has other projects that he wants to do as well. So he's not lost interest. He does read all of the scripts. He contributes at least a little bit of writing to almost all of the scripts himself, though his name doesn't appear on them. But, he's totally involved. But he's not doing as much of the day-to-day show running stuff, and Matt and Terry are doing that. And they've also, kind of stepped forward a little bit and are doing more of the writing that Ron would otherwise have done in terms of episodes and so forth. So anyway, the writers, or at least a quorum of writers and the showrunners, gathered together in their new writer's room, which is much bigger and has comfy chairs. I got to go visit them there a couple of months ago, meet all of the new writers. We've got 10 writers on the show at the moment, including Ron and Matt and Tony. And 7 of the newer ones, some of these were with us for season 3, which is now filming, and you're just beginning to see the scripts written by these people. I take it people weren't all that thrilled about 307, but they love 308. Let's just put it that I agree with you and leave it at that. It's more tact than confidentiality, but I would not read you. It would be entertaining if I read you the comment sheets that I send them on each of the scripts. It works out over time. So we are now in the midst of season 3. They have already begun filming on season 4. So I've seen the outlines, which are, as I say, are generated in the writer's room by the writers and the showrunners. And what they do is they break script, as they call it, which means literally taking the book apart and listing every single scene, sub-scene, border scene on a little magnetic strip. The place is covered with whiteboards, and they devote a whole whiteboard to each episode. And so you'll see evolving episodes over here and done episodes over here, and the one you're working on is in the middle. So you can tell by looking backwards or forward, I can't use that element because they want to use it over there, and I can't use that element because they already did use it, so this is what I have left. And so you put together your outline. Well, the person in the back of the room, I think it's called the script coordinator, is busily taking notes while all of this talking is going on, and people are moving, the magnetic pieces around and saying, well, we can do this, we can do this, and you generate kind of, it's not even an outline at that point, but it's kind of a flow chart of the events that you're going to include, the incidents that you're going to include, and then there's places where, you don't have something from the book, because, see, a book is, well, it's big is the one main thing, and also I have total control over what happens in it. I am God. So when I write a book, it can be however I want it. It can have multiple climaxes like this. It can be slow for a long stretch, rise up here, dip, and then go like this. The show can't do that. It is episodic television, which means they've got basically an hour a week, and each hour has to be a little climax in itself, a little dramatic arc. And that means you have to start with a situation that is intriguing or questionable, and you have to go through a reasonable evolution and come down at a spot that kind of resolves what started in the beginning, but also gives you a little jump to go into the next episode, because people are going to have to hold their breath for a week, and we want them to do that. So you can take as much as you need out of the book to get here, and you can take this and say, well, we can move this from over here, that could happen here. If we kind of turn it sideways and we give this line to the other person, which is why lines sometimes end up in another person's mouth, is because of this fitting. But also you come to spots where you just have a gap between pieces of the book, and then they have to invent things. They have to write something to get from here to here. So, the whole room is agreed, well, we're going to do something, along these lines. At this point in the story, they should be at this point in their relationship, at this point in their journey arc, and so forth. Okay, so which pieces can be used to support that? What else are we going to do? And this is how you get things like Claire drilling holes in people's heads. The script originally called for her to be demanding from Madame Jean a carpenter's drill so she could drill a hole in this person's head. And obviously a brothel would have a carpenter's drill at hand. I swear I won't tell you all the comments. But I did explain to them exactly what happens when someone has a head injury. I said, you know, the skull is actually fractured. There's like cracks, so forth. If you start drilling into it with a drill that goes like this, you're just going to push the pieces of bone into their head. It's not going to help. And I explained to them what kind of instruments we do use to you know, alleviate pressure in a skull, which is why we got a trephine. I told them, you know, obviously the buckle hasn't got a trephine, but if you insist on doing this, you can have Claire, you know, say, you know, run down the street to the physician next door, and he might have a trephine. And so instead they said, go get a trephine from the barber surgeon. Okay. I got quibble with, you know, small things. You gotta pick your battles. I want a barber surgeon, fine. I think they were, well, anyway. Where was I? Yes. I was describing how this stuff works. So anyway, if you're doing this, if you're the writer whose episode is under discussion, you will eventually get from the script coordinator a list of what are called the room notes. And this is what everybody said about your episode as to, we'd like this, we'd like that. We don't want to use this, you can't use Angus because we're going to kill him in the next episode. That kind of thing. And so actually they killed Angus in the previous one. I wanted to kill Rupert, and they said, no, you can't kill Rupert, we're saving him for Culloden. So this is a showrunner's decision, no problem. So anyway, you get this sort of flow chart, and then from that, you write your script. Okay, at this point, this is the only point where the script is totally under your control as a writer, but you get to write the first draft of your script. Okay, you then send it in. All of the showrunners read it and make comments. They send it to Sony and to Stars, who also read it and make comments, and they send it to me, and I read it and make comments. So I'm reasonably sure that Meryl kind of, you know, filters my comments before sending them on. That's what I really told her when we started this relationship. I said, you know, I'm totally honest in anything I tell you. I said, that's kind of the upside. I said, that's also kind of the downside. You will never be in any doubt as to what I actually think. So, like I say, I think she may filter what I say. But the important stuff I'm sure gets through. Anyway, when I did my own script, I got back, you know, just a handful of, you know, notes, which were mostly very simple things to fix. And Ron had to put on a note. He said, this is from Sony and Stars. He said, the only important one is the first one. So I read it and said, oh, we love this script. It's fabulous. They said, but we are afraid it sounds too much like Diana. They said, she has a fabulous voice and she's very funny, but the problem is that none of the other scripts are. Funny, I mean. And so, funny, although they're fabulous. But they said we're afraid it will sound totally different from all of the other scripts and it'll stick out too much. So basically, can she sound a little bit less like herself? So Ron said, well, can you throttle it back a little? I said, yeah, I can do that. So we did. And in fact, Ron went through my script as well and assisted with that. Excuse me. I will say he's a very good editor.
So while she's having a drink, I think what you can gain from this is that it's not possible to do an exact presentation of the book in televised form or in visual form because there are other constraints that come in. So for those of you who say, but it's not like the book, the truth is it can't be like the book, right? It's a different form of storytelling. So a question I would have would be, you know, what would happen if they decided to go off and write one of these that you haven't written? In other words, an entirely original script. Is that an option for them?
What if they went off and wrote a completely original script that had nothing to do with the books or using any of the material? Well, let's see. Technically they could, yes, because I have no legal control over anything they do. It's a matter of contract that I am a consultant, but there's nothing in that contract that says they have to listen to me. They have to pay me, but they don't have to listen to me. In fact, that's what my agent said the first time I said, well, what does being a consultant mean? What do they want me to do? They said, well, probably nothing. They said it's basically a ruse to, for their accounting department to give you more money without going through their approval process. They said, and so mostly shows don't want the original author anywhere near the production because they're, for obvious reasons. Anyway, he said, but they might want you to consult and you actually tell them something, in which case, they'll let you know. But they may just want you to take the money and, stay away. As it is, luckily they did invite me in. And one of the reasons they did that, and the main reason why they would not do, I would suggest, is you guys.
I asked that question because I was quite surprised. Ann Cleves, who writes the Shetland, any of you watched the Shetland? If you haven't watched the Shetland, I really recommend them. It's another trip to Scotland, but more contemporary. Told me when she was at the store in April that she was writing the 8th Shetland novel, after which the TV series would continue, and they would be writing original scripts. And so, you know, she's going to move on and do something else. And that certainly is what happened with Colin Dexter. And the Morse, you know, not only were there Morsons he never wrote, but then there's Endeavor, and then there's, you know, Sergeant Lewis and whatever. So they can take on a life of their own, and I didn't know if you had discussed that with them or not.
Oh, we have not, because they're courteously pretending that I'm not going to die. But the other thing is that Outlander is only in its 3rd season right now. We are approved for the 4th season, which is why they're filming it. We don't yet know whether we will get a 5th, 6th, etc. season. We certainly hope so, and again, that kind of depends on you. But yeah, we expect to. And people keep writing to me and saying, well, we hope, you know, you're not going to pull a George R.R. Martin, you know, and, you know, let them, you know, lap you, go behind you. And I said, no, don't worry about it. I said, for one thing, I have 8 books already in print. It takes them roughly 18 months to film one of those. I said, they're never going to catch me. Thank you. Yeah, so the other thing is that I take as much time as a book requires to be written, but I'm still a lot faster than George. Yeah, who to his credit is a very good writer. But, you know, he also takes as much time as he thinks the book needs. And unfortunately, he did not have all of his books written before they started filming. And they film somewhat faster because they have fewer episodes per season. In fact, these final 2 seasons have only 6 episodes each. So, you know, count your blessings that we get 13. That's another reason why they're not going to, you know, go beyond what I've written. At least not unless they'll outlive me, and I kind of don't think so. I come from very long-lived stock. But yeah, no, the bottom line is that at the moment we have a reach of about 2 million on my Facebook page. Not that many subscribers, but we reach that many. And you know, these are pretty much all hardcore book fans. Outlander Stars has about 1.5 million subscribers, which is good, but more of them are show fans. Though my husband, who looks at that page, I don't go anywhere except my own page. I avoid a lot of trouble that way. But he looks at the Outlander Stars page. He says, yeah, it's you know, about 60% show fans. He said, but you have this big rash of book fans who keep sticking their noses in and saying, you gotta read the books. So yeah, the show is fine, but you gotta read the books. You have no idea how much you're missing. And luckily they seem to be helping, because Random House tells me when one of my books is going back to print. And for the last 3 months, every week, they've been sending me a back to press notice for 2, 3, or 4 books. Well, as my first beloved editor used to say to me, these have to be word-of-mouth books because they're too weird to describe to anyone. She's dead right. So thank you all for spreading the word, etc. Anyway, just a little bit more about scripts and filming and so forth, and then we'll talk books if you like. Where was I? Oh, scripts and so forth. So anyway, you write your script and you get these notes back and you fix the script. The showrunner may also, you know, put in their own fixes if they like. They don't have to tell you. Ron did, luckily. And he's a very nice editor. He said, you know, I've left your voice alone as much as humanly possible and just tightened it up a little. In fact, it was so good that I almost didn't know what he'd cut. And then just before it goes to filming, the executive producer who is running that block, a block is 2 episodes that they film under the same director so they can maximize their use of locations. And so they will have at least one of the writers who is an executive producer. They aren't all executive producers, but whichever one of them is, will go out to be on set and will have complete control over that block. So that executive producer can also rewrite or add to or subtract from the script before it goes to, you know, the actual production. And so when it does go to the actual production, then the actors start getting what's called sides. A side is a little 5x7 sheet of usually pink paper, and it's got just the scene that they're going to be shooting that day on it. This could be, you know, like half a sheet or 2 sheets, depending on how intensive the scene is, or how difficult, or how much, you know, action there is in it. We had one scene that was the worst chase in episode 211, where the Redcoats are chasing Jimmy, Claire, and company after the ambush. And it took us 3 days out on that moor with horses chasing up and down, and a wire-rigged camera which ran for half a mile and was on a wire and whizzes right along. And there also was a chase truck, which in some cases was leading them, with the camera pointing at them so you can see their faces. And other times was behind them actually chasing, and you see their backs. A rule of thumb, if you're seeing their backs, those are stunt riders. If you're seeing their faces, it's the real people. Both Sam and Katrina are very good riders, as a matter of fact. And Graham is quite a good rider, but he doesn't really like to do it. So, you know, he was riding, you know, in the chase scenes and so forth. But there is, as you know, this dramatic moment where Rupert is shot and is staggering out of his saddle. And Dougal rushes up alongside, jumps into Rupert's saddle behind him, and pulls him up so he doesn't fall off. Okay, well, they did this with the chase truck, which had a mechanical horse mounted on the back of it. And so Graham would ride his horse up alongside, and then at a very slow speed, you know, basically step off his horse and, you know, land heavily on the mechanical horse. As the director who was standing next to me said, you know, the mechanical horse looks like shit, but it doesn't matter. So nobody's going to see it. They're just going to see the saddle. And other than that, you see the real horse. And he was pretty much right about that. Anyway, as I say, this went on for quite a while. I was standing with Ann Kenny, who was the executive producer on my block, and the other writer, a lovely lady who got along really well. So we were standing there chatting, and Graham comes staggering down the hill past us, and he said, "I've just been having a conversation with my balls." And they both said, "We'd really rather you didn't do that again." I went off muttering, "I knew I should have worn a cup this morning." So anyway, there's a lot of repetition to the filming, and so one scene, you know, can take all day or several days. Some of the shorter scenes that are just an exchange of, you know, dialogue, those might run 30 to 40 minutes when I get the dailies. The dailies are the film that they've shot on a given day, and they send me those every night or every morning, depending on the time difference. And they can run anywhere from 20 minutes up to 2.5 hours, just depending how many takes they decided to take and to send me. Some things are very simple, they can get it in a few takes, and in that case, they cut out all of the waiting time in between, so I just see one take and then the next take and then the next. But having been there, I realized that there's from 15 to 45 minutes between each one of those takes. It's usually about 15 to 20 minutes, assuming nothing happens. On one of the days when I was there, Sam stepped off his horse when they shouted cut and was, you know, just turning around to throw the reins over its neck when it peed on him. He had a slightly longer than usual costume break. Fixed him up. And on the same day, we had Roman Merrick's son, Fergus, you know, who comes up on his donkey announcing that he's going to go with them. Okay, well, the donkey decided he didn't want to move. And so the donkey is stuck in the arch with Roman sitting on it, you know, kicking it earnestly. And it's and the horse guy poking it in the rear end. Anyway, finally they got it to, you know, trot up, and Roman gives his line. Well, then the donkey is supposed to, you know, go off so they can do the next take of it. The donkey wouldn't move. So Don Priest is our horse person. Anyway, he got up in front of it, took it by the ears, butted its nose into his belly, and was sort of walking it backward, leaning on it. So this is what we call the donkey Archie, the upstager, because, you know, he was bleeding. But, you know, this is the kind of stuff, as they say, never work with animals or small children. And we had during the same block, the scene where Jamie is talking to his young niece, Catherine, you know, and the baby, he's taking the baby so his mother can get some rest and so forth. And, you know, he's talking to her in Gaelic, very moving and charming and so forth. So we had 2 babies, actually, who were twins, and so we could switch them out between takes so none of them got too tired. This was not entirely successful because they both kept falling asleep. And so I would be seeing takes of Sam, touching the baby's face and then, kind of poking it behind the ear. So because she was like, and you could, every time they changed babies and gave him another one, every female on the set would be going, hold her head. And we also had the brief potato scene where they dump the potatoes on the table, and there's the whole family around there. Well, there's supposed to be 3 Murray children at this point, with young Jamie and Kitty, who's now 2 or so, and then the new baby. Well, we had a little girl who was supposed to play Kitty, but she was otherwise known as Miss Cranky Pants, because she wasn't having any. She was worse than Archie. She screamed and cried. Her mother carried her up and down, and so there were long waits between takes while they tried to convince her she would, like to just shut up for 15 seconds. Anyway, she never did, and that's why she's not in any of those things. Like I say, stuff happens when you're on the ground and you have to make adjustments in the script, like, okay, Kitty's not here. And there's a lovely woman named Margaret who is the script coordinator here, and it's her job to stand there with a giant book which has the pages of the script, and she makes all of the notes as to what changes, and the director's notes as to what he would like to see in the next take, and we're going to take this out, we're going to change that. And she also, I think, notes the camera operators who are working and what their position is in this particular thing. You may have between 1 and 3 cameras working at a time, and then the special ones like the wire rig. And each one of those is run by its own camera operator. They're enormous. The regular TV camera is about 4 feet long. And there are scenes in my episode 211 that had to be changed on the ground because you couldn't fit a camera into the parts of that old house where they wanted to take shots. And so we had to say, well, we can't have Clary fiddling with a button hook at this door because the door was set into an alcove that was too narrow for the camera to get into. Likewise, the director wanted a shot from the lawn outside of Hugh Monroe sneaking up and bashing the redcoat over the head with a rock. But the camera operator said, I can't do that. He said, it's too steep down there. If I put it on the grass, you aren't going to get anything but the bottoms of their chins. and like, if I go far enough back to see them, you won't see them at all. And so we had to shoot that from inside and figure out exactly how we were going to do that. How are we going to get rid of the redcoat's body and all that? And I'm the one who said, could you just show him being dragged off so his feet disappear and then we don't worry what happened to him? And that's what they did. That's the point, is I wanted to be there to say things like that. And because all kinds of stuff can happen to a script once they start shooting, and it may not have anything to do with what you wrote. So anyway, that's about it for filming and so forth. Though if you have any questions, we'll do that.
You're fine.
Oh, you're fine? Okay. All right. So anyway, about books, basically, all I can tell you is that what everybody wants to know is, when is Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone coming out? Which the answer is probably about 6 weeks after I finish writing it. The publisher, reasonably enough, has a publishing schedule, which they like to establish from a year to 18 months ahead of time. They put all these books in order, and they say, we're going to publish this one here, and this one here, and this one here, this one here. They don't like it if you say, well, I'm writing a book, and I'll let you know when it's done. This doesn't accord with their ideas of what's right. And so, about a year before they think the book should be done, they start calling me and saying, well, of course we know that you can't tell us, but it would really be nice if you told us anyway, sort of thing. And they always say the same thing. I say, look, I will be dead honest with you. I will give you my absolute best estimate of when I will be done. I said, it will be wrong. It's always wrong. I said, the book will always take longer than I think it will, and it will always be longer than I think it will be. And it always has been. That's it. Do they learn? No. So, they call it increasingly small intervals. So you're saying, is it done yet, essentially? And they always start saying, well, we know you can't really predict, but we really want you to. And, so finally we'll get close enough, and I'll say, well, it will be wrong. I say that I think that I might be finished, by the end of June, perhaps. So the next day I log on to Amazon.com, and it has that book listed for sale on June the 3rd. Which means everybody is all upset when they get to June the 3rd and the book is not done. Which, I told them it wouldn't be, but the readers, of course, don't know what's going on here. And they're going, well, the book had to be moved, and then it had to be moved again. What's she playing at? Why is she, doing this? Which which would not happen if they would just shut up and wait till I finished writing it. That said, if I can succeed in staying home all of 2018, I have hopes of finishing it by the end of next year, by the end of 2018. Yeah, the book itself is in good shape. I have a number of chunks, which is what I call things when the scenes have started to assemble, and I get 40 to 60 pages of contiguous stuff. I've got about 8 of those at the moment, and they still have little chinks here and there, but basically I know what happens in these pieces. And I can line those up against the historical timeline that I develop in the back of my head while I'm researching. And so at a certain point, which I think is probably somewhere in the next 2 months, I will be able to see the actual shape of that book. All my books have a geometric shape inside them, which you would be able to recognize if I told you about it, but you don't see it when you're just reading through. You know, Outlander, for instance, is shaped like 3 overlapping triangles. The first climax is when Jamie takes Claire to the stones and she makes her choice to stay. The next one is when Jamie is captured and she has to rescue him from Wentworth. And the third one, of course, is when she saves his soul at the Abbey. Well, alas, owing to the lack of grottos and hot tubs and things, we were not allowed to do that third climax, which is why you had all the confusion between the ending of season 1 and season 2. But, as I say, books are different. I can do anything that I want to, including grottos and so forth. And so, you know, I don't bear the show in mind. So another thing people always ask is, well, has your writing changed as a result of the TV show? Do you see the actors instead of your original characters? I say, no, why would I? I mean, Sam and Katrina are fabulous, but they don't look anything like Jamie and Claire actually look. And no, nor should they. I mean, how could you do that? People are saying, well, why don't you get a police identikit person to draw a picture of what you actually think they look like? And I said, well, A, it would look like a police sketch. I said, B, if I could do that, I would put it up and every single person would say, that's not what they look like. Because you generate your own picture of what they look like from reading the book. Everybody's mind is completely different. I have a number of readers who are totally convinced that Claire is blonde, in spite of everything to the contrary in the book. And a number of them are convinced that Jamie has black hair rather than red hair, just because that's what they want to see. So it's like, it's your mind, as long as I don't have to look at it, it's fine. So anyway, the point is that every person has their own idea of what these people should look like. When you're looking at the show, then that's what they should look like. You know, the show is different. It's not an actual, you know, page-by-page telling of the story. As Barbara says, this is totally impossible. What it is an adaptation, which, you know, it can either be a pale imitation or it can, you know, really have the essence of the story very powerfully. And you will feel as though you are actually in the world of Outlander. Other times, depending on who wrote it and so forth, and other things, you know, a little less. But, you know, overall, I think they've done a really good job. It's not an easy thing to do. I was pleased that this year we got not only the Dragonfly in Amber edition for you, which will help make Christmas much easier, but we also have 7 Stones to Stand or Fall, which was a nice as my husband was saying, you know, he was saying it's been 4 years, you know, are you going to finish writing that book sooner? I said, well, it hasn't, it's only been 3 years, and besides, I wrote 3 other books in that span of time, so, you know, shut up. He basically tries to keep me from undertaking appearances and engagements because that actually does stop me from writing. As people say when they come up to me, you know, when is the next book coming out? And I say, well, I'd be home writing it if I weren't here talking to you. But, you know, I'm more than thrilled to come and talk to you nonetheless. So, let me pause at this point and see if any of you have any questions that you would like to ask, either about book, show, or anything else you can think of. Yeah, over there. No, they wouldn't listen to me, except occasionally. For the first episode, I actually watched that in the production suite with Ron Moore. He showed it to me as it was put together. It was fabulous. And he said, I really, really want to know what you think about this. And so I watched it really carefully. And I was enjoying it. I made bits and pieces of notation because I hadn't watched all the dailies. And I said, this is great. I said, I can tell you 4 things about it. And I don't remember what 2 of them were. But I said the one thing where Jamie is saying, you needn't be scared of me. They haven't included that. And I said, you really need to include that bracelet, you don't have to be scared of me. Yes, at the moment I'm being advised to say, thanks, Facebook fans.